Take a seat, gentlemen. I'll take the first one. So before we start the talk, let me introduce each and every one of you. From the far, my right, your left. From the far left, we first have Theo Voss, co-founder and CEO of Inter.link. Theo leads a global service provider committed to making the internet more sustainable and transparent, combining cutting-edge automation with a strong emphasis on energy efficiency and green practices. Welcome, Theo. Next to Theo, we have Demos Kyriacou. Yes, good. Co-founder, CEO, and Deputy CEO of Wingu Africa Group. And Demos has been instrumental in building neutral carrier-grade infrastructure across Eastern Africa, driving digital growth with a strong focus on sustainable and scalable data center development. Welcome, Demos. And last but not least, on my right side, Anton, Manager of Data Center Services here in the Netherlands at Nikhef, the Dutch National Institute for Subatomic Physics.
Yes.
Anton is responsible for one of the most connected scientific data centers in Europe, where operational excellence meets a clear commitment to reduce environmental impact. And welcome to you too. So let's dive into the conversation around how these leaders are shaping a more sustainable digital future. As prepared, Demos, I'm going to start with you. So, Demos, during our prep call, you mentioned how the sustainability debate in Africa looks quite different than in Western Europe. Can you paint us a picture of what sustainability means in your context?
Good afternoon, everyone. So we operate in a region that is very, very different from Europe. For us, the basic availability of power is something that we strive to. We don't have all the tools that you have in Europe, or we don't have the supply of power. So for us, it's very important to get reliable and resilient power in place. So the infrastructure for that. Yeah. That's our primary focus and goal. Of course, we try to look at the sustainability issue, but for us, it's very important to be able to have access to the power. Not so much, the carbon footprint as such, or all that, but having power.
Yeah. And Anton, from your side, from the European side or Amsterdam side, it's quite the opposite.
Yes, in Netherlands we have the PU, of course, since 10 years about the power use effectiveness, that you use as less much power for the equipment around IT than the IT itself. So we all data centers 10 years ago had to go beneath 1.4. Before it was 1.8 about, and the new below 1.2. So last year we were beyond the 1.3, so that went very good. And we're now trying to get it even lesser to 1.2, like the modern data centers. And you can also do that by the compression units or the cooling machines, because they use a lot of power to change them into free cooling. And that's what we're now planning to do.
Okay, and when we speak about the cooling systems, you also mentioned about chemical choices.
Yeah. Well, the government at this moment is trying to get everyone to natural refrigerants, like ammonia and propane. But ammonia you can't use in near the people where they live. And we're on a science park, and there they say, you can do it here, because you're not living people here. But you have thousands of people underneath those machines, so you don't want them. You have also propane, they want to put you to. Propane, you can't put it off in bottles when it leaks. You have to put it in the air, so you have to put it and burn it or so. And it's bigger than the machines that we use now. We now use R134A. And the global warming potential of those machines are 1300. And the newer refrigerants, that is the R1234ZA, that is less than 1, like propane, like ammonia. But that may be forbidden because there is PFAS in it. But you have PFAS is 10,000 kinds of stuff, so they don't know yet. They know that in 2030, but we're planning to renew the machines. So we're now at that point from what should we do?
Okay. And then I was going back to you then. So you say energy, infrastructure. How about cooling?
Yeah, we try obviously to use as efficient as possible HVAC units. We operate in some countries where the temperature or the climatic conditions are not very friendly.
Yes.
We reach temperatures of over 50 degrees, in, for example, in Djibouti where we operate. So there you have to obviously use HVAC systems that are geared for this type of temperature. We cannot really use free cooling or water cool because we also have shortage of water in some of these markets. So free cooling we use in Ethiopia, where there is very good ambient temperature range. It doesn't go beyond 27, and in the evenings it's around 20, even less than 20. So we try to use that. We also try to use hybrid solar systems. So try to use the solar power wherever possible. So we're looking into that. We haven't employed it yet, but that's something to look at. So water cool systems, like we said, it is a bit of a challenge because of the scarcity in some of our markets. But of course, as the demand, power usage demand goes up, that's something we'll have to look at liquid cooling. So what we try to do whenever we invest in new facilities, we try to look forward and try to be able to convert some of the existing systems that we had into water cooled at some point.
Okay. Yeah. Going a little bit on a different, Theo, we have you sitting here too, so we need to put you in the picture as well somehow. So as a connectivity provider, you are basically the end user of everything Demos and Anton just discussed. And given your sustainability first mindset, you're very interested in the CO2 footprint or the footprint of your suppliers. And in case of data centers, how do you handle this?
Yeah, I think so. What we look at as consumers is something very different. So we don't have direct like electricity consumption or diesel fuel that we burn in generators that we use or operate. We are using a service, and a service is really hard to kind of quantify in terms of how much carbon does the service emit. That's the other example with how much carbon do you emit by just scrolling or clicking on a link or sending an emoji reaction, for example. So in order to kind of tackle climate change and also be more sustainable, from our point, we have to look at the full chain of this process. So how do we make all the parts of the process more efficient? And that's where it starts. In order to be more efficient, we need to establish kind of a status quo of where we stand. So I would ask AMS-IX, for example, how much carbon does my AMS-IX port emit? And that's the first step where you have to go into a calculation and start thinking about how do we gather the data if it's not just amount of kilowatt hours or diesel in liters, etc. So that's where we have started from the ground to build a system that we can use to account for how much carbon is actually a connectivity service, a port, or whatever, bandwidth or transport, how much is that actually using? And that's something where we learned that while you guys are relatively eager and already looking into that for a long time, in the services space, that's something very new, and very little providers or data centers or vendors can actually give you data about the carbon footprint of anything from an appliance over to a service.
Okay. Well, to give the answer to the question, I don't know. Well, actually, you just asked me as well, right? I said I don't know, but actually we do have calculations or we have the data to calculate it, but we haven't done that yet. So maybe one day we'll be in touch for that next year. But Anton, do you see similar requests like Theo just described?
It is none of our customers ask for it at the moment. I asked my colleagues also yesterday, and we just pushed the people who are in the room to do that, and even the environment people say you have to put the machines in idle when you don't use it. Yeah. And we can't say to our customers that they have to do that because they just rent a cabinet at our place and we provide the electric and the cooling. And but you can see, because at 6 o'clock in the morning, the internet is at its lowest and 9 at the top, and you can see a little different in the electricity. So you can monitor it on the systems, so you really see that they put things on idle.
Okay. I have a million questions about this regulation. So there's a regulation that apparently we as users of data centers, we need to put our machines on idle mode or energy efficiency mode. Well, we actually bought the machines because of the power they have. But, okay, I have a million questions about it, but from the government, so let's not go into that.
Can I later.
But Demos, do you ever see any requests like the one from Theo?
Yeah, I mean, our customers don't ask for this. We've never been asked. Although we're seeing as more and more, let's say, what we call them impact investors coming to our region. And in order for them to finance you or to advance any loans, you go through a very, very stringent process, which includes giving information on CO2 footprints. When some of the hyperscalers come knocking on the door as well, this is something that they do mention. Okay. But our main operation, or the customers that we cater for mainly, do not ask.
Okay. Can I just say something in that regard?
Yes.
Yeah, so I think what we think I can agree is we see a trend. So we see investors, big investors, requiring that. That wasn't the case years ago. We also see consumers caring about sustainability on the product side, for example. And I think in general, IT or our industry is very late to the game. So I think that we have hosters and other companies that don't ask. It's just a question of time when they start asking. I mean, there's regulation coming in Europe, forcing companies to report and reduce emissions. And on the other hand, I think it's also, as you mentioned, with temperatures in Africa and availability of resources, it will just become a natural requirement to talk about, with the growth of AI and everything, about the fact of how can we make that efficient and how can we reduce the footprint in the end.
So basically, we need to prepare at the end of the day.
Maybe I'll ask you one day, what is the carbon footprint?
Well, perfect.
So, but you're operating international, and when requesting these numbers or looking at the reports from the different providers, how much of it do you suspect is greenwashing, I think we called it, or marketing driven, let's call it like that?
Yeah, I would say it's still, so we require all of our vendors, all the partners that we work with to report the carbon emissions. And we have a person dedicated to that topic, and we're carbon neutral certified. So really we have to take this seriously if we want to pursue our track there. And I would say that the majority of the partners and suppliers that we work with, they have it on the marketing slides, but if we ask for actual data, they have little to nothing. And I think it is something that you have as a buzzword on the website and in presentations, that you care. And I think also those companies actually care, but going that length to have the numbers is more than just a marketing topic or a marketing investment. You really have to change how the company operates, how you tackle the topic of sustainability across all the functions, all the teams, start from a taxi receipt of a salesperson to your biggest supplier and get information from them as well. And I think that's something where we are in the very early stages. And we're pushing, but I think it's something where many other companies also over time will, but also should now already make this a requirement when they purchase. Put it in the RFP, for example. Yeah, not just asking about the tech part or the commercial part, but asking about the sustainability part. Because in the end, sustainability is a cost factor. So we calculated, for example, that if we compare product A with B, and if we would put the carbon cost on top of it, actually maybe a supplier that was cheaper in the beginning becomes more expensive in the end. And that opens up a very new kind of total box or topic of how to build sustainability into everything.
Okay. And then from your perspective, or from your opinion, I have to say, is this, are they not willing to accept it yet, and this is why they're late to the game, or is it the inability to get these numbers together?
Yeah, I think in the end it's a question of pain, I think. So either pain comes from regulation, or pain comes from the environment because you don't have resources, or pain comes through money that you have to spend on it. So I think in Europe we have a very luxurious environment overall. We have a lot of resources. Regulation is just coming in, so I think a lot of companies are not yet forced enough to do it, and still it's considered as something nice to do if you want to do it right, but you're not forced to. And on the other hand, I think a lot of the larger organizations are big tankers, and building sustainability into your operations is a major project. It's like establishing a new ERP system in your business. This is not something you do just with a snip of a finger. Yeah?
I'm thinking about the questions we had, or if I have follow-up questions. Well, actually, Demos, you just mentioned it already, investments. How easy is it to get those investments?
Not very easy, and very complicated. You have to go through a lot of processes, and a lot of things are tied to it. So we had in the past certain discussions with, let's say, impact investors. You would think an impact investor would care about the impact, but they also care about the interest and the return that they make. They're banks at the end of the day, you know, and it's not that easy.
Okay. Yeah. Going to Theo. Sorry, not Theo. Anton. You already mentioned PUE as a measure of sustainability. are there any other numbers, and how do you measure it to begin with?
We measured, you have the total that comes in the main cabinets, and you have the electricity from the IT that goes in the room, that are the cabinets in the room, and you just, square, dat gedeeld, dat square.
So basically the difference between the total energy consumed and the ones that are sold.
And then you have the PUE and
and then you also have the water usage.
the water usage effectivities.
I never heard about that.
That also invented 10 years ago, exactly at the same time as a PUE. It's still in the books of my courses, and it's about the water that you use for the whole data center. We have all those machines that are all inside the water, and they just turn it around all the time. But there are data centers who also use water from the tap to cool the whole data centers, and that is in that way you can see van how much they use. And the government isn't using that at the moment. They're trying to do that. I talked to them last year. Now it's just beginning. I said, you did this 10 years ago also. It's still in that book. And the data centers in Amsterdam also use tap water to cool the systems. You can do it with
Yeah, it's funny because I worked at one data center. I wasn't really into how the cooling works and those kind of things, but I do remember we had a closed water system. So when I heard about using tap water, I was like, huh? What?
Yeah, that's also what I think. I think closed systems are normal, but a lot of data centers don't do that.
So it's constant fresh water running through?
Constant fresh water running on the systems to keep it cool. And there's also a lack of tap water in Holland, and data centers use a lot of tap water to cool the systems.
And here I am using rainwater for my garden. So, well, I wanted to ask this question to Theo, but actually I think it would be nicer for Demos and Anton, starting with Demos. How transparent should data centers be about their energy use and sustainability performance?
Good question.
I did not prepare you for this one, I guess.
Fine. Look, you have to be transparent at the end of the day, because you're offering a service to your end customer. Now, what goes into that? There's a lot of, you have to have the resources to do that. You have to have the ability to do that. So, yes, it's ideal to do it, but not so easy, I would say.
Okay.
Yeah.
And Anton?
It's a way of the building management systems. So we have it live on the screens at our office. We have it live at the screens we had it live. We still have to make it because we had a renovation. But we can just put it live on the screens. And I think every data center just has to put it somewhere that all the people also can see it. We don't do that at the moment for data centers, I think. Because I don't know what the PUE for the data center next to us is.
So, and then Theo, who is at this moment driving the sustainability landscape?
I would still say that most of the drivers are companies that care and that have made kind of sustainability part of their DNA or of their mission. But on the other hand, I think what we see is that the European Union is pushing this topic a lot. And also something that you said, Demos, earlier, and I believe, we can argue, I guess, how much value or how much positive impact shareholder value has brought to the world. I think that's a debatable topic, but I think shareholders are interested in long-term profit. And if you, in today's world, want to see long-term profits, I think you have to have sustainability on your radar. And I think that is an area where this kind of investors on one side, but also everyone involved is or should have a long-term interest in pushing this topic forward. And I unfortunately think that, especially here in Europe, as being in this environment where everything is prospering and available, that will maybe take the longest to adapt versus other countries are on the forefront of pushing this because they have to. But I think, and this is maybe also a driver, is we already make sustainability questions like carbon emissions, etc., part of the buying process. So we, as I said earlier, we might buy from Demos because he's transparent and gives us information that we can use to decide how efficient and how sustainable are we, versus another data center provider that says, I don't care, or I don't have the numbers. Because if they don't have the numbers, I have to assume at least something. And if I do something in terms of carbon footprint or measuring carbon footprint, the more data I have, the better. So I think that transparency thing comes in handy, not just in terms of being transparent, but also as a selling point at some point.
And let's say one data center is transparent and the other one is less, but they are cheaper.
Yeah, that's what I mentioned earlier, that when I have to take into account, so you can account carbon emissions by actually measuring them, or you can also say you convert euros or dollars into emissions, basically, based on a factor for each category. Like a data center per euro has X average carbon emission. However, I think if somebody is more expensive versus somebody that is cheaper, if the more expensive one actually costs me less in compensating and handling that carbon footprint on my end, then that can be an advantage to the data center then.
Okay.
If I may dare to be a little bit controversial.
Please do.
So the reason we're having this discussion about green energy and all that is because it's the result of a very big industrial revolution in most of the developed world. And we have to remember that, at least where we are in Africa, that hasn't really happened. And we're asking people to put the ESG, tick the boxes in the ESG list that's come out of, let's say, US, Europe, whatever, and apply it in that market. And ask people to put the investment and the cost added to what they're doing. So I think what we need to do is we need to look at it in certain markets from a different lens, from a different perspective.
Yeah, more proper to the market.
Yeah.
Adjusted.
Yeah, but maybe also to add, I think that if the amount of people and the amount of resources that you have in your regions and the development markets, if they also want to go through the same cycle as we did, where ours wasn't very efficient or very sustainable, I think that's something we just resource-wise can't afford. So we need to make sure that we help countries or markets like yours to be more efficient without, of course, putting all the regulations and everything on you, but really help you to not just go through the same process or same steps that we have been, because those weren't
correct. And the impact investors should really be impact investors and not banks.
Interesting on interest. Yeah. So actually, I just took my phone to check if there are some questions from the audience, and we do. Because I took my earpiece out so I don't hear Henrika. Well, otherwise I heard Henrika and them, and it doesn't work out that way. So, anyway, I have a question about Amsterdam. So Anton, I'm going to relay this one to you.
No.
In Amsterdam, there's a moratorium on new data centers. Other regions also sometimes suit or wanting to do so as they feel DCs are bad for the environment and the power grid. Do you agree? So I think what we mean here is that there's a stop on building new data centers inside Amsterdam because of the power grid.
Yeah, we also can't go much further with the power at the moment, of a little. And it's good because the power grid is still 2030 stopped to have more power, I think.
So we're really through the
So we
power.
really, at this moment, can't use much more power unless you have already bought it in.
So it's not a matter of agreeing with this regulation, it's just
No,
it's
and
the way
I
it is.
know in the West Harbor there's going to be a mega data center, and that already invested, have already got a power, so the industry there can get more power, but that goes to the data center.
Okay.
And they did it 10 years ago, they ordered the power.
Okay. And then I see that we have another question. I didn't read it yet. So what role can data centers and our industry play in terms of helping the whole society and economies become more sustainable, if any at all? Anybody cares to answer this one? Not all at the same time.
It's about the know-how of how many it costs when you open a cat movie. Because that is sustainability. I use my phone for everything, but when I use it, I can see on my phone how my health is, how much I do on study, how much I do for fun, how much I do for this, but I don't see how much it costs. So if I have 5G or Wi-Fi, is it
So basically, as an industry, start working together to make it visible how much doom scrolling is actually costing, so people are aware of how much power they use. That's one solution, definitely. Yes.
I think on the other hand, education plays a vital role as well. So educating people about the energy usage of not just the doom scrolling, but also of equipment, for example. And also because I think the buying power on the consumer side is the biggest buying power that we have as we serve end customers in the end of the day. And I mean, whereas in the fashion industry, it's for a long time already a big thing to buy sustainable, and a lot of people care. In IT, still very little do. And I think we see more and more companies also advertising this in the end consumer space, offering a sustainable option for, let's say, internet at home versus a non-sustainable option. And I think that's something where also we as companies and as an industry can just kind of spread the knowledge. I mean, how many panels have we had about sustainability at conferences like this, like 5 years ago? Yeah. Not many, and now it's basically part of every conference. So I think this is also a contribution that we need to do and do more.
Okay. And I had a question in my mind, and it went pew. Yep. Let me take one of the questions that we prepared again. Then, so if we really want to make a sustainable future for infrastructure providers globally, is there a way of collaborating, making a single way of doing it everywhere? Because we know now that Western Africa or Eastern Africa compared to Europe is a completely different world. Yeah. Is there a way of getting somewhere, making some kind of standard, or helping each other somehow? Do you see demos? Do you?
Yeah, I mean, we need to sit around the table and discuss this. So you get all the stakeholders. You get, as we said before, the financiers or the impact investors or whoever, the users. Yeah. And the people that are interested generally in making sure that we don't destroy our environment. And we all sit down and come up with a formula that works in each market that we're addressing.
Okay. That was that question. And this one I'm going to go to Theo. Because you are more global, you're more international, of course. What do you think we need more of to become more sustainable? Is it innovation, better regulation, investments, or a mindset change, maybe?
Yeah, I think the regulation will come and is coming in different markets and different speeds. The investors we talked about as well, they care about this for a very different reason, but they do. I think, for example, when it comes to knowledge sharing between even competitors, I think we should make sure that we treat sustainability not the same as we do with pricing. So if you would be a competitor, I wouldn't discuss my pricing with you because we compete among the same customers. But if it comes to sustainability, I think we should keep the mindset of having your sustainability person talk to mine very openly about how do we do this system-wise, or how have we set up our processes and internal policies, and let's make this free information or a resource that we share and that we do not keep for ourselves. I think that's something that will really, really help kind of speeding up that process.
Okay. We should not see it as a competitive advantage as such. We should see it as something that we all should have.
As an equal, I lost the word for that one, but yeah, so a shared responsibility.
Yeah.
Okay, let's see if there's any more questions from the audience. This one we already had. I see 3 ready for moderation. Herika, if you can do those. Are there any people in the audience here that have a question? Again, I have to light it in my face. I don't see any hands, I believe, so let's see if we have something that is... There we go. Sorry? Oh, there is somebody. Oh, yeah, there, all the way in the back, I see somebody. Yeah. Please, the microphone is coming. Please state your name and the organization you work for.
Hi, I'm Nestle Bellows from Breton. Hi. I have a rather a statement than a question. So I completely agree with sharing information about sustainability and sharing that knowledge. But then again, isn't it something that's supposed to help us with optimizing our OPEX, something else? And then it becomes a thing that we might want to keep as a secret in order to shorten our OPEX and making our operations more sustainable. And then you are in a catch-22 situation where you rather not share something. So how to get out of that catch-22 situation, in your opinion?
Yeah, should I take that? Yeah, I think it's an interesting question, of course. And I mean, I recently read that Volvo invented the 3-point harness in the car, and they made this information or this concept available to everyone. Now, you could argue that Volvo could have made a lot of money by keeping this for themselves. On the other hand, they did provide this to the community, and I think after 30 years maybe or longer, that has been proven as a very valid and solid investment into everyone's benefit. And I think with sustainability, and we see this across borders as well, this is not just something that impacts us here in Europe or in Africa. This is not an isolated problem. So I think personally that this is a topic that we should not treat as an individual, like companies' potential benefit, but rather as something that impacts everyone and everyone in society.
Okay. We have questions on the Mentimeter again. And actually one for, we have, well, your co-worker.
Oh, yeah.
Floris,
We found a question.
microphone is coming. As before, please state your name and the organization.
My name is Floris Bieshar. I'm one of Anton's direct co-workers. Again, I have not so much a question as more of a suggestion. Wouldn't it be a better idea to not put policymakers or CEOs or corporate suite level people together, but technicians when it comes to discussing the individual technologies that might actually improve all data centers worldwide, for instance? Because there is a lot of technical overlap when it comes to like the infrastructure for a data center itself, but the environmental factors that come with a data center in the desert, as opposed to a data center in, for instance, the Nordics, where you have glaciers, or geothermal power, or the Netherlands, where we have a lot of ATIS systems. Wouldn't it be an idea to just put the technical level people together, as opposed to conferences such as this, where we talk about things, but don't actually come to like actual actionable solutions or suggestions?
Who wants to take it? Demos. It's a co-worker of Anton, so I don't think it's fair if we ask Anton to react to this.
At the end of the day, it'll be the technical people who will come up with a solution. Now, but at the end of the day, after that, it's the CTOs and the CEOs and whatever that are going to sign off. So you've got to get them on board as well. Otherwise, it's not going to fly. I think what you need to do is get everybody involved. So it's not just a financial decision. It's not just a technical decision. It's a decision that needs to be taken by everybody, that something makes sense.
Yeah.
Of course, for the environment, and of course, for the business itself as well.
We had a big discussion, for example, about 100G LR1, also with AMS-IX. And I mean, there you can see the impact of cost, because LR1 is cheaper than LR4, but you can also see that LR1 produces less heat and consumes less power. So I think that came from a technical point of view, or from a technical team, and then was like adopted by C-level, because we saw a greater benefit of pushing more for LR1 through marketing and every other department as well. So I would agree with that, yeah.
Finally, a topic I can talk to about as well, LR1, LR4. Finally. Oh, because don't forget, with us indeed, we use QSFP DD optics, 400 gig, and we can do 4 times LR1 compared to only 2 times LR4 in the same port. You know? So also the density of the equipment before you have to upgrade again, it's just double. So yeah, finally something that I can talk about.
Right.
So thank you, Floris.
Yeah, you're welcome.
So we have more question. A Mentimeter. We'll go to the audience in a second. Miguel, one more from this side, and then we go really to the phone.
Should I stand up?
Yes, sure.
So Miguel Regalado
Miguel
from AMS-IX.
Okay.
Hello. The time guy. In 2015, the United Nations, all the countries of the United Nations signed the 2030 agenda, which involves 17 different kind of actions to take. And one of these is sustainability. Are you being pushed by your own government, I mean, or the different governments, in this case, for instance, the Netherlands or Djibouti or whatever other country in the world regarding the agenda? Because actually in Spain, you can hear the Agenda 2030 almost every day in the news. And that was...
So is it being pushed, the sustainability agenda, by the government?
Only with the PUE and the WUE in the future, they're trying to do that.
Yeah, they're lowering it.
They're lowering it, and the idle situation of the equipment.
So Amsterdam has some measures in place, or Netherlands? Yeah.
So, I mean, sorry. Yeah, in a way it is. So investments in renewable energy is something that's happening.
Yeah.
So within the next 5 years, Djibouti will be almost 100% green energy, which is solar and wind. Ethiopia is 99.99 green energy, which is hydro. Yeah. So yeah, they're pushing it in this way. They know stringent controls, so nobody comes to the data center knocking on the door and measuring our CO emissions and the CO2 emissions and all that. But there's a broader initiative to try and wean away from, fossil fuels or other means of generating energy. Okay. Yeah.
Thank you.
And there's also the thing they want to push the data centers to have an inlet of 27 degrees.
Oh yeah.
And the machines go further with our ventilators, so is it really a sustainability? And they have also this little line in it, if you have everything free cooling, then you don't have to do that. So we are now at an inlet of 25 degrees, we're not going higher, because I say we have everything free cooling in about 2 years. And we have this aquifer in the ground. We use the cold, and the student homes at the other side, they use the warmth. And they're also busy with putting all living areas on those aquifers.
Yeah, so those are the ones that your hot water basically goes to those apartments.
Yeah.
Okay.
So in winter we're going to use the free cooling machines, and in summer we're going to use the aquifer. Because free cooling can go till 20 degrees, otherwise you have too much too high temperature.
Okay. Thank you, Miguel. So let's go to this one then. Let's see for who this one is. What can you do better to make you or your community more sustainable, but you're not doing it yet? So what steps can you take in your community to make it better?
At the moment we have the compression machines, and they take about 200 kilowatt when they go on, and then the free cooling machine takes 5 kilowatt. So we're planning to renew the compression machine with the free cooling. And then we also can go lower with the temperature again.
And it's also something you can do towards your customers, so the customers become more sustainable or can become more sustainable?
We can ask them, and we try to ask them to put things on idle, but that's difficult situations.
Demos, do you have any thoughts about that?
I think more use of this hybrid solar systems that we're thinking, and also when we build a little bit more modular, so we're a little bit more efficient in the use of energy. I think these will be the two actions that need to be done. We already do the modular stuff, but the solar is something that we're looking into.
Yeah, and that's more for yourself to become more sustainable. Is there anything to support your community, so your customers or the people around you?
Okay, I mean, obviously the purpose of the data centers is to improve the lives of the people around the society, right? So by offering them access to more mundane things rather than CO emissions, is access to internet and access to a safe internet and the ability to connect. That's what we do towards society through our data centers.
Okay. Theo, anything to add, or should I'll skip this one?
Yeah, so we're trying, for example, on the LR1 example, we're discussing if we make our services cheaper, if people agree connecting on LR1. We think that's an incentive that on the same time pushes sustainability, less power, more efficiency, and similar measures like that. So educating is one topic that we invest a lot in, like educating customers about that this is even cheaper, more efficient on a regular basis through webinars and stuff. So that's something we really want to do more and are very at the beginning.
Okay. Any more questions from the audience? No, because I still have a couple on my phone, so I don't see any hands. So let's see, which one, do we have time? One last one. Let's see. Oh, this one is for you, Theo. At least I think it is, or the person who asked it is Theo. How are you going to measure data traffic indicators, incoming and outgoing data bandwidth and traffic?
How we measure it, I guess from a sustainability standpoint.
I guess so, yeah. It doesn't say so.
Yeah, so we measure that based on, also we try to measure emissions first of all, through data that we get from suppliers. So if it's a data center, we ask for the emissions that they make on our behalf. The same goes for hardware suppliers. So we try to ask them, okay, how much emissions have been emitted while producing the hardware, while shipping it, and also when we dismantle it at some point. That data is being fed into one system that we have, that we're running locally, all the data that we get. Worst case, we don't get any data yet, so for example, from you guys yet, then we make assumptions based on the spend that we have. The same goes for transit providers. We have, or peering partners, we have some that give us real good data and some that don't. And all the data we try to kind of get as accurate as possible, then ingest it, and then basically calculate how much of that then kind of matches to one customer, to one port, and that you can break down onto the overall amount of traffic we do, and then also on a per meg level. Yeah, but then you have to, as I said earlier, from like office rent to a taxi receipt to a data center bill, you have to take all this into consideration. Otherwise, you miss out on vital parts of your carbon footprint. If you only look at, let's say, the router or only at the data center.
That's a lot of information to gather.
Yeah.
So that is all the time we have. We are exactly on time, 2 seconds to go.